Hello class, this is Professor Morrison and I'm here today to talk to you about the research outline. So you should be able to see a single slide that shows you MLA research outline. Everything should be in MLA format, which is completely true. All right, so this is not necessarily how yours should look. This is not in 12-point Times New Roman. However, it is a good example of an outline with letters and numbers, and that it can be very helpful. So we want to make sure that we are setting up our outline using MLA formatting like always. 12-point Times New Roman is the only font we can ever use. Everything must always be double spaced. We need to use that 1-inch margins. That is the default in Word, which you have access to for free as a student. You have your MLA heading at the top left like you normally do. Your title is centered. Everything else is aligned to the left. Please do not use full justification or center. It must be aligned to the left to be within MLA formatting guidelines. Now, remember the 2-point rule for every outline. If you have an A, you need a B. If you have a 1, you need a 2. So you need at least 2 points under every heading. That's going to be your minimum. Now, we want to make sure that you're doing more than the minimum if you possibly can. And what I'm going to do is tell you a personal story to help you to understand this. So when I was an undergraduate student, I was an adult reentry student. I was in my early 30s. I had a 4-year-old child. I worked full-time and I was going through a divorce. I have no immediate family, and I had one very good friend who has since passed, sadly. But she had 2 grandsons who were around my son's age, and she was like a sister to me. We were in and out of each other's houses, so she was very helpful. And I remember being assigned to do a research outline at Cal State San Bernardino, and it was a long time ago. And I was so busy and so overwhelmed and stressed, and I thought, why am I being asked to do what I considered to be an extra assignment? I didn't realize at the time that there is no such thing as an extra assignment. There really isn't, and an outline is critical to composing, especially a research essay, but any essay at all. And I was not happy about being assigned to do the research outline. It was worth a good chunk of my grade, just like yours is. And it was probably in, a very similar class to the one you're taking right now. And so I thought, well, if I have to do this, if I'm being forced to do this, then I'm going to do the very best job that I possibly can. And I called my friend Diane, and I asked her, can you please watch my son this Saturday? I have to do this assignment. And I probably complained about it. I'm sure I did. And she was very nice. And she said, of course, bring him over. We love to have him. And so I drove 40 minutes to her house, and I took my son over, and I very sadly left him to play. He was happy. I was sad because I was missing out on time with him. And I drove 40 minutes back home, put on a big pot of coffee, drank every last drop, and spent several hours working on my research outline. Not only did I put in the minimum, which I will show you, but I also added a lot more. And this turned out to be a wonderful gift to my then future self. I didn't know it at the time. At that time, I was just trying to do my best job ever. Since I had to do something, I was going to do my best. And I spent several hours, and I went back and I got my son, and I came home, and life went on as normal, and I got an A on my outline, and I was really pleased. And the next week, I had to write a rough draft based on my outline. It was for a research paper, just like this one. And I called Diane again, and I said, could you please watch my son again? I've got to write this rough draft, and normally it takes me like 10 hours to write a rough draft because I work all week and I go to school all week. And she says, of course, we would love to have him, bring him over. And she very kindly allowed me to do that, and I drove 40 minutes, and I dropped him off, and I drove 40 minutes back home, and I put on a big pot of coffee, and I must have had maybe half a cup. because when I took out all the letters and numbers and put the paragraphs together into paragraphs and added more analysis and summary and commentary, it only took me a half hour to write my rough draft. Literally, you guys, a half hour. And I was shocked, stunned, and amazed. And I went and got my son and took him to lunch in the movies and had a lovely day. And when it was time to peer review my rough draft, it was really good, better than anything else I had peer reviewed in that class before, or pretty much in any class. And there were not many things for me to change, so that saved time also. And then when it came time to turn it into a final draft, there wasn't a lot to change then either. I mean, even my works cited was already done for me, which would usually take me the most time to sort through. And I got an A, and I was so happy that ever since then, and it's been a really long time, my son is older now, and so am I. And I outlined everything. I outlined all of my essays. I outlined every class. I outlined this PowerPoint. I outlined everything. I storyboard my novels. You should see how very logical and detailed I am. And do I sometimes veer off from that outline? Yeah, sometimes I do, but it's there to help me to know what I'm doing. So you guys, this is not an extra assignment. This is absolutely critical. It is my gift to you, just like Dr. Ramirez gave me that gift many years ago. I'm passing that on to you so that you can have the efficiency and the skills to take with you to your other classes and save time and energy, because revising at outline stage goes so much faster than at rough draft stage, like huge. Be kind to your future self. So with that being said, I'm going to turn on my laser pointer here, and you have your 2-point rule. So the very basic that I'm asking from you is 2 points for every major section. So for your introductory paragraph, all I'm really looking for is your hook and your thesis. But if you would like to add your background information from the Gale or Credo or CQ Researcher, wherever you got it from, that's strongly suggested because it will save you so much time in the future when you go to write your rough draft, because you're going to have everything separated in letters and numbers for your outline, and then you'll save it as the outline and you'll submit the outline. But then you take all the letters and numbers away and you add more analysis and commentary and summary to your conclusion, and bam, you have a rough draft immediately. So it's really two assignments almost in one, except for the outline has the letters and numbers. It's separated into sentences. There are no paragraphs in your outline, and it's separate, and you can tell when you do your outline, do you need more here, do you need more there, should this be in this order, move it around like pieces in a jigsaw puzzle. And then and only then, when you're satisfied with that, if you need to go get more research, you can do that also. Then you go ahead and you turn it into a rough draft, but you save it as an outline first, and then the new document you save as rough draft, and then you put that together, and then that's what you will submit for peer review. So these two assignments, the outline and the rough draft, you're doing them basically at the same time, or one right after the other. It's one process with two results. So when you do your hook, I suggest using your rhetorical question, because you already have one. And why reinvent the wheel? Why? Why would you want to do that to yourself? You already have a perfectly good rhetorical question. You're going to answer it in your thesis statement. So it just makes sense to use them kind of as bookends for your introduction. And then that middle section is up to you. All right, so step one, your thesis, you type introduction, you place the hook, you type thesis, you type the thesis statement. At this point, Word has figured out that you are writing an outline, and Word is going to start lettering and numbering things for you, and you're going to say, thank you, Word. Yes, please do that. And you allow that to happen, because you don't want to be indenting and tabbing and numbering yourself. That is really painful, so let Word do that for you. This is from an assignment from an actual student a few years ago. Effects of media eating into women's self-esteem. So we have a hook and a thesis statement, and this is the very basic thesis statement. This has a main idea, a standpoint on that main idea, and 3 avenues for discussion. Remember that in your research paper, you could have 4 or even 5 avenues for discussion in your plan of development, and then you'll have body sections for each one. Remember that you will have multiple body paragraphs for each body section, at least 2, if not 3 or 4 for each body section. So your introduction could be 1 paragraph, it could be 2 paragraphs. And then you have at least 3 body sections with at least 2 body paragraphs in each one of those. And then you might have a whole section just for counter argument and rebuttal. And then your conclusion might be 1 paragraph, might be 2 paragraphs. You'll reach your page limit, guaranteed. Make sure that you are using the meal plan, and I'll cover that in a minute, to structure your body paragraphs, and that your body paragraphs are right about a half page long, no more, please, no more than that. And it should be right about a half page. That's your Goldilocks zone. That way you know that you've covered a main idea, you have evidence, you have analysis, and you've linked it, and then go on to your next paragraph. You have a lot of paragraphs to write. Don't make them extra long. That doesn't help anyone. Okay, so here we have our basic no frills attached thesis statement, which does its job and is just fine. The media has a negative effect on women's body images by 1, sexualizing women, 2, leading them into body dysmorphic disorder and eating disorders, and 3, causing them to modify their bodies due to their obsessions with meeting the media's unrealistic standards of beauty. There's a lot to write about there. I know that this will lead to a nice long research paper because it already exists and I used it. Now make sure that Word is the one that's formatting your outline. You don't have to be indenting yourself. So here is that thesis statement again, just visually at the top. And then everything is based on that thesis statement. And in your introduction, you have at least your hook and your thesis, if not also your background information, including research. And of course, you'll have in-text citations and a works cited list. And the beauty of that is when you go to do your research paper rough draft, your works cited is already done, which is so nice. So for each main point, you have a major body section. And for each sub point here, you're going to have support, quote, summary, or paraphrase, and analysis. And each one of these is going to turn into a body paragraph. So you need at least 2. Things are just smushed into this slide. I'll show you a longer one in a minute. You keep doing that all the way through your main points and then get to your conclusions. So don't worry about this because Word will do that for you. But when we outline our body paragraphs, we want to make sure that each piece of support or 2 pieces is going to turn into its own body paragraph. So we need to follow that meal plan. And MEAL, as we know, stands for Main Idea, Evidence, Analysis, Link. Sometimes we might duplicate evidence and analysis. We might have 2. Main idea, evidence, analysis, link. And that's fine, as long as it's not too long. Remember that half page is your goal. So your main idea, your topic sentence, will explain what this paragraph is going to be about. And then that paragraph is only about this one main idea. And then you would start a new paragraph with your next main idea. So here's an example of a main idea or topic sentence. Body dysmorphic disorder is a serious disorder that women fall into because of unreachable expectations from the media. So we know this body section, this body paragraph is going to be all about this. And then we're going to provide supporting sentences. And we're going to have quotes, summaries, or paraphrases. And so here we have a quote, and it has a quote within a quote, which is the only time we would ever use a single quotation mark. So here's a specific example of a quote. You have a higher risk of developing a negative body image when you live in an appearance-orientated environment. And then we have Smith, and it's on page 3 here, and then we have the period after the parentheses, which is correct. And then we have to analyze our quote. Now, I've only got one sentence here. You should probably have 2 or 3 to analyze each piece of evidence, maybe 4 even. So here, this is just for the sake of space. It's very short. The majority of Western society is appearance-oriented. Therefore, there is an even higher risk of developing a negative body image. Okay, now we have to link this back in our meal plan to either our main idea, our thesis, or to the next paragraph, which in this case would be about eating disorders. So our link sentence is, when women have a distorted perception of their bodies, they try to lose weight, which in most cases leads to eating disorders. So what if you want to add another piece of evidence and analysis to this same paragraph? That's okay. You can go ahead and put it in before your L. So here we have another piece of evidence. This one is from an internet source. So when we have an internet source with no author, we take the first 3 words of that internet source's title and we put them in quotation marks inside the parentheses, and then we put a period after the parentheses, which is correct for MLA formatting. So here's our evidence. Another important factor in the development of BDD is the influence of the mass media in developed countries, particularly the role of advertising in spreading images of physically perfect women. And again, we have these single quotation marks indicating a quote within a quote. And then we have to analyze it. And again, you should have 2, maybe 3 sentences, not just 1. I just put 1 for the sake of space. So analysis. It is nearly impossible for women to believe they are beautiful the way they are when the media displays photoshopped perfect women. And then insert the L. And it's going to look like this if you were to use MEAEAL. However, you are going to use letters and numbers instead. And every time you have a quote, summary, or paraphrase, you need to choose. Is this going to be 1 paragraph or 2 paragraphs? Are we going to have 2 quotes in 1 paragraph? Or are we going to have 1 quote in 1 paragraph? And every time you have a quote, summary, or paraphrase, it's going to turn into a paragraph. And you need to have at least 2 body paragraphs per body section, although 3 or even 4 is recommended, depending on how many avenues of discussion you have, the normal 3 or 4 or 5. And then you're going to end with your works cited. So you type works cited. It's always plural. There's always an S there, even if there's only 1, although you should have a lot more than 1 here. And you center it. You're not going to put quotation marks around it. I'm just putting what you should type inside quotation marks so that you know that's what you should type. And then left align everything else. Make sure your sources are in alphabetical order. Use a hanging indent for each source. And standard MLA formatting, 12-point Times New Roman, double spaced with 1-inch margins. Now I also have an example for you, and that is right here, I think. Okay, so hopefully, let me just make sure that you are seeing what I'm showing you. Yes, okay, good. Double click on that, okay. And this is also a different outline, but again, from an actual student. And this is what it would look like. Let Word do your lettering and numbering for you. If it puts some things in bold, I don't care, that's fine. If it doesn't look exactly like this, I don't care, that's fine. As long as it's letters and numbers. Don't get hung up on the little tiny details. We got work to do. And it takes time. Let Word help you. It's a tool. Now, in the header, you have your last name, a single space, and the page number. It's also in 12-point Times New Roman. Here you have first name, last name, professor spelled out, my name spelled out, whatever class we're in spelled out, and then the date in European style. No abbreviations, no punctuation. Our title is centered. And then we start with our first major section in our outline, which is the introduction. This person did start with the research question. Why not? It's a good idea. So we have a why question, and we're going to answer it in our thesis. And in the meantime, in the middle, we have that extra work. This is not required, but it sure would be helpful for your future self if you did it. So this is background information that this person probably got from Gale or a similar source. And I had a little conversation with this student because this is a specific number. And I thought, I'm not sure that that's common knowledge. Maybe we should cite that. And this student was able to prove to me that it could be found on 5 different reference sites without a citation. And so I kept it as common knowledge. But when in doubt, you want to make sure to cite it. Notice how there are no paragraphs. We are separating our sentences. And when we go back to create paragraphs, we may actually add more. Here we have our thesis, which is our basic thesis, main idea, and 3 points in our plan of development. So we have 3 avenues of discussion for this research paper. And here we see the popularity of music festivals in America has provided an escape outlet with the advantage of new discoveries, increased consumerism, and an environment of carefree diversity amongst youth. We have 3 body sections. In each body section, we need to have at least 2 body paragraphs. This person has 3. And that's fine and good, and I encourage that strongly, especially since they only have 3 avenues of discussion. You need more paragraphs in each section. So here we have a full sentence, topic sentence, because this is a full sentence outline, no fragments, no bullet points, use in punctuation and citations as well. And so this is going to be about discovery, which was our first point. And then we have a quote, and we have analysis for the quote. We have another quote, an analysis for that quote. And then here's some extra work here. We have a summary or paraphrase with a citation and analysis. So we're going to have even more than the minimum here. And then in body section 2, we have another full sentence, topic sentence, quote analysis, quote analysis, quote analysis. There's that 3rd body paragraph again. Each one of these letters will become a body paragraph, and did. Here we have body section 3. We have another topic sentence that is full sentence that explains what this body section is all about. And then we have a quote, an analysis, quote, analysis, quote, analysis, 3 body paragraphs again. Then in our conclusion, we have summary and parting thoughts. And again, just as you're doing this, when you see your quotes, summaries, and paraphrases, whatever's in your mind as analysis, write it down while it's in your mind, because these thoughts tend to escape and it can be difficult to retrieve them later. So put them down on paper or on the page as soon as you can. Notice there's only a tiny bit here on page 7, and then the works cited does begin on its own page. That's correct. And if you want, after your last word, you can do a Control-Enter, which is a hard break, which will then force the next page to always start on its own page. Notice how we have hanging indent, Times New Roman 12 point, double spaced, and we don't have any of those extra spaces. We've taken those out from our paragraph menu. Everything says 0 and 0 and double, hanging by ½ inch, and then don't add space between paragraphs of the same style. We want to always make sure those settings stay the same, that they are our default settings. And we're going to make sure our sources are alphabetized, and we have these long clunky URLs, and this is Life with MLA 8th edition, and that's what it's supposed to look like. And unless you can get a DOI, this is what it looks like now. And so you can also add the accessed by at the end of that. Here, accessed on with the date in European style again. You are able to do that to kind of protect yourself, because websites change and you're just saying on this day, this is what it looked like. This is the information it had. So does your outline have to be 8 pages long? No, it doesn't. But if it is, wouldn't that be more helpful to you when you have to turn around right away and do a rough draft? I think it is. All right, so I'm available for questions, should you have any. And I certainly hope you will ask if you do have some. And in the meantime, I just want you to have a great day, and you'll see me again in the next video.